Hello, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum, along with Kennedy, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It is 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. So President Trump this afternoon ramping up his efforts to counter escalating left-wing violence, hosting independent journalists at the White House for what's been called a roundtable on Antifa, which his administration has labeled as a domestic terror organization. Watch some of this.
It should be clear to all Americans that we have a very serious left-wing terror threat in our country. Radicals associated with the domestic terror group Antifa. The epidemic of left-wing violence and Antifa-inspired terror has been escalating for nearly a decade. At universities, Antifa has organized riotous mobs to attack campus speakers. Andy Ngo has been repeatedly beaten by Antifa thugs for his work. You look much better. It's nice to have you. You feel a little safer here. Only days ago, Nick Sortor was assaulted in Portland by a flag-burning mob for inciting riots. We took the freedom of speech away because that's been through.
That was after DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was on the ground and up on the roof of the besieged ICE facility in Portland, Oregon, getting an up-close look at the chaos that has kept residents up at night in the area. With more than 100 protests in a row, she did not hold back, taking aim at Oregon's elected officials.
That is what is shocking to me about these leftist politicians, just how they ignore the people who elected them, jeopardize their safety, and continue to disrespect our law enforcement officers. So one of the things I've been dealing with all day here in Portland is a bunch of pansies that are elected into political office who won't make a decision to keep their citizens safe.
So right now, 500 Texas National Guard troops are set up in Illinois, based at an Army Reserve station about an hour southwest of Chicago. This comes amid major resistance from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. President Trump has expressed his displeasure. He posted on Truth, quote, "Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers." Governor Pritzker also. But the governor is firing back.
This is a convicted felon. I mean, think about that, who's threatening to jail me. I got to say, this guy's unhinged. He's insecure. He's a wannabe dictator. And there's one thing I really want to say to Donald Trump. If you come for my people, you come through me. So come and get me.
Don't you love, Kennedy, how he turns to the camera for that last part? If you come for my people, come and get me.
Yeah.
It's like
do
a
it. Put
TikTok
them on.
video.
I want the bracelets.
But that's all he's doing. You know, he's cosplaying as a tough guy, and unfortunately, he's lost control of his state. And because of that, and because of leaders like him, that's why so many people, independents and the non-political alike, created the coalition that got Donald Trump elected for the second time, or the third time, as Jesse would say. But all he's doing is really an impression of Donald Trump. You know, he's standing out there preening for the cameras, trying to sound tough because he thinks it's about the posturing and not about the message itself. But while the president may have non-traditional and controversial means going into these cities, deploying the National Guard in order to reestablish safety, there are people like J.B. Pritzker who are trying to use it as a power grab in order to leapfrog, a giant leapfrog to the presidency. The people in places like Washington, D.C. and Portland and Chicago are privately breathing a sigh of relief. Now, interestingly, a lot of law enforcement officers who support the president are not necessarily crazy about the National Guard being deployed. They would love it if the civic leaders, if their bosses, the mayors in these cities, people like Brandon Johnson who have abdicated their responsibility, if they would actually work with law enforcement to make these cities safer instead of just standing up against the president and really standing for some of the rapists, hardened criminals, and Antifa members who are destroying these cities from within.
You know, we've seen, Harold, in Washington, D.C., in Los Angeles, really, when the troops were sent in there, it was just sort of a protective measure that seemed to help quell the situation over a temporary period of time. Memphis is having positive results from having some extra help from the federal government. But these areas, you can see where there's a political agenda to push back from Pritzker and from Brandon Johnson. They're trying to seize on this moment and sort of get the better of President Trump in a political way. How do you think that's going to work out for them?
We'll see. Good to be with everybody. I'd say a couple of things. I think several things can be true at one time in this conversation. First, ICE agents should be totally, completely allowed to do their jobs without fear of being shot, without fear of being harmed, or without fear of their personal safety being violated. And we should do everything possible to ensure that. Two, the hierarchy of deportations, Martha, we've gotten to a point where the president was elected on two notions around immigration with me. One, the border, and he has locked that down. Two, we're going to deport the hardened, violent criminals. Now, we've had a conversation, even debates around this table about whether or not the violent criminals are the ones they're going after or not. But we can see some of the videos, some of the things on social media. I'm not a social media trafficker, but I get these things from friends and others showing videos of people who are being taken down by ICE agents, probably rightfully so in some instances, but they don't seem to be violent offenders. So I think this hierarchy of deportations is something that's true for a lot of people as well. You mentioned the crime. I'm a firm believer that Memphis and Washington, D.C., and some of these cities that face high crime rates are going to welcome these, the communities will welcome these police officers. I know in Memphis, one of the concerns, I'm from there, and I represented Memphis 25 years ago in Congress, and I still have relationships and friends and family there. The concern is that the Guard is not going into these communities, and Jesse and I talk about this a lot, where you see a lot of black-on-black crime and where the crime instances are much higher. They're not going into those neighborhoods where a lot of people want them to go into, and I'm hopeful that, as I've said on the show many times, what we need is a big crime bill. Flood these cities with more cops, with more prosecutors, with more resources to build jails. And for that matter, they get it only if they end cashless bail. There's a way to do this, and I think the president, who I give credit to, I think he has the right instinct, but I think sometimes he, to get to your question, and Pritzker and Johnson, they have decided that they'd rather fight one another. And no big problems in our country at the federal level get solved if the executive, Democrat or Republican, is not trying to bring people together to solve them. We talk about the name calling. Democrats shouldn't do it, but Kristi Noem shouldn't call Democrats pansies. The president shouldn't call people left-wing terrorists or stupid or gnats on my shoulders. He talked about Democrats when he was giving an address at the Naval Academy. I just think it goes both ways. And when my party gets out of line with the language, I'll be the first to admonish them. And I think we have to be fair and have to be even-handed. If we want to solve this problem, we got to figure out ways to bring more people to the conversation.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.